Not today.
What grabbed me immediately is that his God understands a basic truth a lot of trauma-driven films forget. Pain by itself is not a personality. Suffering alone is not depth. If a film wants me to care about wounded people, it has to show me the shape of how they live with that damage, not just the fact that damage exists. And Aleshea Harris absolutely gets that. Racine and Anaya are not just victims walking around inside a revenge plot. They are scarred, isolated, deeply angry young women who have spent years being looked at, judged, pitied, and quietly pushed outside normal life. Their pain is real, but the movie never lets that pain flatten them into symbols. That is one of the smartest things about the film. It takes a story that could have become heavy-handed almost instantly and keeps finding ways to make it human, specific, and bizarrely electric. The setup is brutal. Two twin sisters who believed their mother died in a fire are suddenly pulled back into her orbit when a letter arrives. When they reunite with Ruby, they discover not only that she survived, but that the fire was not an accident. Their father did it. He tried to kill the whole family. And now Ruby, lying there with far worse burns and a body that carries the full cost of that violence, gives her daughters a horrifying command: kill him. Not metaphorically, not emotionally, actually kill him. That order launches the film, but what makes it powerful is that Harris does not pretend the command lands equally on both sisters. Anaya resists it. Racine embraces it. And right there, the movie gives itself internal tension instead of just external stakes. That matters because is not really about whether revenge is possible. It is about whether inherited violence can ever be escaped once it starts living in the bloodstream of a family. Harris keeps tightening that question without turning the film into a sermon. The dialogue carries the language of generational curse without ever becoming preachy. And the film clearly knows how much that idea resonates inside Black spiritual and cultural traditions. But it never stops being a movie first. It is too stylish, too strange, and too committed to character for that. Racine's line about coming from a father who tried to kill their mother and a mother who now wants them to kill their father is one of the cleanest summaries of the movie's central nightmare. Violence has already shaped them long before they pick up the mission. The real question is whether carrying it out will free them or complete the inheritance. That is what gives the film its disturbing power. This is not revenge as empowerment fantasy. This is revenge as a contaminated legacy. And yet the movie is never dead on its feet. That is the miracle of it. Harris keeps injecting humor, theatricality, and weird beauty into the journey. The sisters are not elite assassins. They are not sleek action heroines carved out of mythology. They are improvising. They debate absurd methods. They struggle with what they are doing. They are telepathically linked in a way that the film treats not as a gimmick, but almost as an emotional language of twinhood. Their silent communication becomes one of the movie's most distinctive tools, and Harris stylizes it with text in a way that should feel precious, but somehow does not. Instead, it deepens the sense that these two women move through the world on a wavelength nobody else fully understands. That bond is really the soul of the film. For all the blood, rage, and grotesque family history, God works best when it lets Racine and Anaya simply exist together. They wear matching clothes. They brush their teeth side by side. They move like people who have only ever really had each other. That intimacy gives the movie its pulse. And it also makes the road movie structure work. Once they leave the tight spaces of memory and trauma behind and start moving through wide Louisiana landscapes, the movie briefly loosens its grip around their throats. There are flashes of play, boredom, humor, even freedom. Harris understands that if you want the violence to mean something, you also have to show the life trying to push through it, visually. The film sounds like a director announcing herself with real command. Harris reportedly handles scale with a confidence that a lot of first-time filmmakers would kill for. She knows when to sit close enough to make the sisters feel trapped in each other's air, and when to open the frame into huge colorful spaces that feel almost mythic. It sounds like a revenge odyssey that could have been scored like a spaghetti western and still worked. The trap-influenced energy only makes the contrast more interesting. That mashup of influences could have collapsed into pure posturing, but here it seems to sharpen the movie's personality instead. The supporting characters sound just as alive. Erica Alexander as the preacher lover still devoted to the abusive father sounds like the kind of performance that could steal an entire movie if Harris let it. Mykelti Williamson apparently turns even a smaller role into something memorable through sheer physical invention. Janelle Monáe seems to bring chaotic, almost demonic force to the screen. And then there is Sterling K. Brown. What makes the handling of him so smart is that Harris does not rush to cash in on his natural charisma. She withholds him, she fragments him, she lets him gather dread in pieces before revealing the full force of who he is in this story. That is a brilliant instinct, because Brown's lickability can be such a weapon that many directors would lean on it too soon. Here, Harris weaponizes the delay instead. That choice says a lot about her as a filmmaker. She is not simply interested in giving audiences catharsis as fast as possible. She wants to control how dread accumulates. She wants the father to feel like a force before he fully becomes a face. In a revenge story, that is crucial. The villain cannot just be someone we hate. He has to feel like the origin point of the rot, and that is why Is God seems to hit harder than many other trauma-centered indie thrillers. It does not let the trauma eat the whole film. It lets pain coexist with humor, style, absurdity, and movement. It lets Black suffering exist without reducing Black life to suffering. That is a big difference. So many films that start from Black trauma get trapped in the heaviness of what they are depicting and never rediscover breath, rhythm, or strange delight. Harris refuses that trap. She builds a movie where horror and vitality keep colliding. And that collision is exactly what gives it force. What makes the ending sound so strong is that it reportedly arrives not at simple destruction, but at a fuller acknowledgement of the human spirit. That is not the same thing as optimism. This does not sound like a comforting movie, and it should not. But there is a difference between nihilism and hard-earned recognition of survival. If the film really closes on something that affirms human interiority after everything these women have inherited and endured, then that is a remarkable achievement. It means the movie understands that revenge stories are not only about blood debt,